joined by Jeff Goodman from the Field of 68. How are you, sir?
I'm well. I've been back home for about a week now. What's today? Today, Wednesday? Yeah, I got back a week ago last night, and still haven't completely unpacked. Still haven't done my expense report. So the transfer portal, man, it just doesn't allow you to really rest a whole hell of a lot. So it's been crazy, as it has been for all the coaches, Indiana included. And then we'll have obviously kids putting their name in the draft, withdrawing from the draft, then the draft, then July recruiting. So it's kind of a year-round sport for the most part. I think August is the one month that I kind of try to take off as much as I can. But other than that, with the portal the way it's been, it's kind of a year-round sport now.
And actually, right after, like as soon as the NCAA tournament ends, and that portal just kicks into high gear, that might be the busiest 2 to 3 weeks of the college basketball season, because it is not, you can't stop looking at your phone or calling people or whatever for 18 hours a day in essence.
Well, and then you add in, for me, it's the month of March, because you add in all the coaching changes as well, the firings and hirings, the portal starting to get going with some high major guys, obviously with the tournament games. And in this day and age, it's not like it used to be. When I first broke in, it was like, okay, the portal was like 250 people. Twitter didn't exist. So you could actually sit down and watch a game and not have to worry about tweeting or other people tweeting every play, every big moment, whatever it was. I'm not going to lie. I missed some of that. Having my laptop kind of closed for the first half, and then writing, which is what I did, then, open my laptop in the second half and start to write a story that, whether I was working at Fox or CBS or whatever, would be published, shortly thereafter the game ends.
Yeah, I was talking just the other day, and I said, and I don't, and the difference between, say, Jeff and what we do, we're covering the Big Ten and Indiana mostly. Jeff's covering Indiana and the Big Ten and the Big East and the Big 12 and everybody else. So you've got a lot more branches that you've got to cover, which makes it even more difficult. How do you, because I don't have to do that, and I know how freaking busy I am. And so going in 80 different directions at once, I'm only going in about 40 different directions. So I can't imagine going in twice as much.
It's fun, and it's funny because obviously my daughter's been around me a lot more lately. I try to take her everywhere I can, for multiple reasons. One, because I love her, and I don't know how long it's going to last that she's actually going to want to be anywhere near me. Number one, and number two is to try to teach her and have her learn. If she wants to get in this industry, have her learn. And I'm not necessarily saying watching me, but watching people like Dana O'Neill, watching some of the other pros do this, Pat Forty, listen to them. She did a seminar in Indianapolis where both of them spoke, a writing seminar, and both of them, in addition to Brendan Quinn, who I think is as good of a writer as there is out there for The Athletic, they all spoke. So, she learned that. She worked. She volunteered there, helping out the sports information crew, passing out quotes and stats and all that. So I think what she saw from me was like, she knows now why my voice is gone when I come home from the Final Four, because you're talking nonstop. You're networking. If you're not writing or on one of our shows, you are talking nonstop to coaches, and it doesn't end at 5 o'clock. My phone goes nonstop, and I think she's gained a better appreciation for that. The 24/7 nature of my job. The one difference for me now is when I go to bed, I turn my phone off. I never used to, but now I'm like, you know what? If something huge breaks while I'm sleeping, so be it. I'm not dealing with from midnight till 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is, being woken up like I have been in the past, because West Coast coaches don't understand that there is a time difference.
For the first time ever, within the last month, I have set on my phone the do not disturb that starts at like 11. Never, ever done that. But of course, there's numbers that you can allow to get through all that. So, and I've got about 10 of those just for backup. Dustin used to do pretty much the same thing with Saturday Down South and dealing with football. But you cover just mainly college basketball, right?
Yeah. Some NBA as well.
Well, but it's almost impossible to cross all of those when you're doing that wide of a breadth. Yeah. To be a columnist, maybe, but you go beyond that actually, because it's the information. It's getting that information that changes, like with Jalen Deloche, who up until just yesterday was going to be on a visit to Indiana on Friday. Yeah. Mike Woodson apparently having knee surgery, which I'm assuming had to come up out of nowhere because that's being changed. He's now going to Penn State this weekend, where Mike Rhodes, his former coach, is, and his former teammate Ace Baldwin is committed already. But what have you seen so far from what Indiana's done in getting the two bigs in Peyton Sparks, but of course the bigger in Khalil Ware, which he's got some question marks, but a lot of upside.
So I've seen Khalil play multiple times, and like you said, upside is the word to use. I wish the rule was still in place for Khalil where you'd have to sit a year, because I think it would help a kid like him more than almost anybody if he had to sit, gain some weight, learn the program, learn the system, all that. He just wasn't ready. I remember seeing him a summer and a half ago. I can't remember. It was somewhere near Atlanta in AAU ball. And I was like, all right, everybody's raving about this kid. I got to watch him. And in spurts, he was great. But again, kind of what he was this year at Oregon, right? Like in spurts, he was really good. But consistency, strength, toughness, those are all areas he needs to improve. And I give him credit because he probably could have come out and still been a first-round pick. And instead, he and his people decided, you know what, let me go somewhere else. The good thing is, he was coached well this past year, because Dana Altman is one of the best coaches in the country. He just didn't have any guards. He had no guards. I saw them in Portland at the PK 85 for 3 games. And they had one guard, Will Richardson. Everybody else was hurt. So that made it harder for Khalil also. I love his potential. I just wonder how long it's going to take. And if this kid is smart enough to understand, all right, it may take me more than 1 year at Indiana to be ready for the NBA.
Do you think, Jeff, to that point, and this is a branch off of the Indiana conversation, but I think that sometimes we tend to critique the transfer portal and NIL and how it's changed the game. We can argue for better or for worse. But do you think players now, there's less pressure for a guy like Khalil Ware or some other guy to make that leap to the NBA because they know that they can earn some money at the college level, as opposed to trying to, even if they get a second-round contract, for a lot of these players can be life-changing money?
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example I'll give you is yesterday, Kyle Filipowski at Duke. I mean, he was going to be a first-rounder. And these days, you could probably count on one hand over the last 5 years how many projected first-rounders decided to come back to school. It just doesn't happen. You've got kids leaving, not just for second-round contracts now. You got them leaving for two-way deals. So I think that displayed how much it's changed, because he's going to get paid NIL. Not as much as he would have had he gone to the NBA this year. Not as much, but he'll get paid pretty well. And I think his thought process is similar in a way, but different to Khalil. Obviously, Filipowski proved it, right? He was a productive player at the highest level last year. So he could have went, but I think his thought is, you know what? I'm going to go from being a fringe first-round pick to being a lottery pick next year. I'm going to get stronger. He was horrible last year in the preseason for Duke. Terrible. And then the light flipped, and he was their best player for most of the year last year. So I think, for Khalil, it's, all right, we're going to give you all this money, so there's less pressure to have to go to the NBA, right. Where, again, Khalil looks at the mock drafts a year ago, having him in the top 10, And now he looks at the mock drafts, and I don't know what they are. I haven't done one since the season ended, but they're probably him in the 20s, maybe. And he's saying to himself, well, you know what? Maybe I need to go back to school to try to get that thing back to where it was.
Today, with coaches having to decide, Jeff, in recruiting, with recruiting freshmen versus recruiting the portal and how much resources you're going to put in, because recruiting a freshman takes 5 times the time, 5 times the money, because you got trips in, trips out, trips there, this, that, and the other thing. And unless it's a 5-star, it's a project. So it's almost inadvantageous to do that in that regard.
And even the 5 stars, I mean, look, you know, some got hurt, but Nick Smith at Arkansas, he was in and out of the lineup. Not as good as we thought. There weren't as many even top freshmen. Brandon Miller was one of the exceptions to the rule last year. Filipowski was, you know, again, better than we thought he'd be. But a lot of these top freshmen aren't as good now because the gap has closed, right? Now you're an 18, 19-year-old freshman. Brandon Miller was older than most freshmen. He was almost a year older than most freshmen. But most of these guys are, you know, 19 years old. Playing now against, like, DeAndre Williams at Memphis, who's 26 years old. Like, for 2 more years, that gap is going to be more sizable than ever until the extra COVID year, which I'm not a fan of. I'm just done with it, guys. I'm done with it. For a year, I'm fine with those the kids that were seniors that year. I'm fine with them getting an extra year. That's all that the NCAA should have done. Most of these kids played 20 to 30 games that year, by the way. So I just feel like it's overkill now. I'm ready. Most coaches are done with it too. Want to be.
And something that people don't realize, the top 20 or 21 selections of this year's, and it depends on where you're looking, but of the an aggregate mock draft are going to be freshmen or the equivalent of that. And that is an absolutely mind-boggling thing. And then you just sprinkle in a couple of guys like Chris Murray, who's a junior, or whomever, and people wonder why. Well, why Trace? I saw someone say there's not 32 people better than Trace Jackson Davis. I'm like going, you want to bet? There's 32 people that you don't even know about.
Yeah. I mean, I hope we're wrong, and I hope Trace goes in the first round because he deserves it. And I still think Trace can be a heck of an NBA player if he can. I just wish he had developed his perimeter shot a little bit like that. Yeah. That's the only thing that I still
That's
wish.
a question, Jeff. I have to. How can that not happen with a guy that has that much talent, that was that successful from the start, who has a dad that played in the league? How, and then you're told that every year. How does that not happen?
Well, is that on him or is that on the coaching staff?
I got to put it on him. Because
I think it's probably a combo.
Yeah,
I think it's probably a combination here where maybe in preseason he wasn't making them enough, so that the staff said, no, we're not comfortable with you. Or maybe he just realizes, you know, I help my team more. I can score around the hoop anytime I want for the most part. I help my team more that way than being a 20% three-point shooter. So, you know, I think it's probably a combo of the two. But to me, it's more of like you had a few years to develop your – and I'm not saying you need to go out there and shoot threes like Hunter Dickinson's doing, but make 18-footers because, honestly, if you could, they might have still been playing past the second round of the NCAA tournament because they just didn't have enough guys that could space the floor.
Nope, at all. Talking about someone like Flory Badunga, I'm sure you've seen him play, but as
I've seen him. I've seen him.
He's I don't want to call him a generational player, but he's really, really, for someone who's been playing, what's he been playing for, 3 or 4 years now? Just raw talent. And when, as coaches continue to get a hold of that with more and more coaching, he's just going to improve.
He's a beast. I mean, when I saw him last summer, the first name that came to mind for me was Amari Stoudemire because of how hard and how ferocious he was. But the biggest difference, Amari could do one thing then. He could rebound, he could overpower you and dunk. This kid has skill. And again, only playing for 3 years, it's amazing like how skilled and how he sees the court. He can pass it. Like most of those kids who've only been playing a few years have no clue how to play. You know, they're a black hole. You throw it into them, you never see the ball back. This kid is so mature beyond his years for which he's played the game. But again, the part that stands out more than anything is the motor, how hard he plays. I mean, he is a absolute monster down there with kind of his relentlessness and his athleticism, physical play, all of that, again, compares to Amari. And then you have the other aspect, the skill level. I don't – what's he ranked now? Is he ranked like 2 or 3?
He's 2 or 1 or 2. Yeah, he went from unranked to number 2, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember what the latest is. I'm going to look right now as we're talking.
I think Rivals had him too, but I'd have to – where is it? I have to pull that.
What class is this, 2024?
4, yeah. But yeah, he went from unranked to I think
3.
number 2.
He's 3 in the consensus, I think. Trey Johnson, Texas guard. Dylan Harper, who's Ron Harper's son, combo guard is 2, and that's fine. Like to me, it's a guards game, right? We can admit it's a guards game, and without guards, you're not winning anything. So I'm fine with that. But I'll tell you what. There's no big I'd rather have than Flory. If they can get Flory, I'm not saying it would be a game changer because you need guards, but it would certainly help.